The class notebook could be considered as a textbook or as just a set of lesson notes that you may want to share with the students. It's quite a useful facility, and you can have sections in there that the students can edit, and you can mark these books online. However, the administration and setting up of these books is none too straightforward. I think what I'll do is just show you one that I've done. Here's my computer science for my year 10s, and I'll give you a brief overview of exactly what's happening in the notebook so that you can see. However, I must warn you, there's two versions. There's one that is online that you can see in a browser, and there is also a version that you can open in OneNote on your computer. That appears in two different forms, so if you look at videos or go for any tutorials, you need to know which operating system you're using. Like the Windows 7, you get one version of OneNote. Windows 10, you get a different updated version of OneNote. We do need to use OneNote offline, so not in the browser, so that we can manage students at a later point. So some administration things you can only do in OneNote offline. Anyway, let's have a quick look at Computer Science Online. Basically, your notebooks will appear down here, and it's up to you how many you create. It could get rather busy in this area, so we need to think about how we're going to manage them at a later date. But let's have a look at the computer science. It's going to load up online, and I'll give you a quick overview of what you're looking at. So the first thing we're looking at is just a single page in the notebook, or the textbook, as I like to call it. If you click this little icon here, you can see a little bit more. This is the problem with Office 365. Most things are hidden and you have to discover where that they've kept everything. So this is my notebook. Here I've got, they call them sections and they give them colours. These are just basic pages, so I've got a welcome page, a welcome section which contains the page instructions, which gives the students some instructions on what they've got to do. Some further sections that I've just used for testing, just writing pages. Now, the next one is created for you. It's a collaboration space. I haven't used it yet, but anything that you put inside here, and you can write further sections inside here, you should be able to collaborate as a group, so it could be useful for group working. The important one is this one, the content library. Now, when you create a student receives a copy of all of these sections. So you can have a section for homework, for quizzes, class notes, etc. I've got 3 sections here dealing with the 3 major parts of my course. So inside here, inside computer systems, I have laid out my course lesson by lesson. So for example, I've got secondary storage here, and it's not very useful. Let's stretch the window out a little bit. And what I've got is I've written myself all of these details. I've left a little gap to let the student know where I expect them to answer questions. I probably wouldn't use this style later. Just as a test, it helps me get my message across to them to begin with. This is also a link to a presentation that I created in PowerPoint online, saved in my OneDrive, and they can just click on the link and open the presentation. However, this is your textbook. This is where you create your work in the content library, and when you add students to the course, and here I've got one student, Callum Griffin. When you add students to the course, let's take student 1, so we don't get to see too much of what the students have been doing. It copies across all of the above sections that I mentioned: handouts, class notes, homework, quizzes, and then these 3 sections, the computer systems programming, but they are empty. Okay, so we have to think of this version here, our content library, like the shared drive. You're going to put all of your lessons, all of your notes in the shared drive. The students have a matching section in their own area which you set up. You can say which ones you have and which ones you don't have. For example, I've got textbook, but that doesn't appear in my main area. It's something I added for the students, and they need to copy over any notes that you want to mark into these sections. If you don't want to mark it, if it's just there for them to read, there's no reason for them to copy it at all. They can just get it from the content library. But if you want to look at their work, mark their work, then they need to make a copy in their own area. So in the next one, we'll take a look at OneNote offline at the very same area.